So, hello? Ben promised me one of those fancy pastor mics, and apparently they packed them all up for the church in the park tomorrow, so I'm a little disappointed. I almost went home. But we're a little thin tonight, but most people had graduations to go to tonight, but we do have a lot of people joining us online. But I just want to thank you from the bottom of mine and Cheryl's hearts for coming. This cause is very dear to our heart, and it's just amazing that you're here to support this. This night would not happen without this instrument right here. So I want to thank Ryan with Steinway Piano. He donated it for free. We just had to pay for it to get here, and it's quite the donation. So if you know anybody who needs a piano in the future, we recommend that you go see Ryan. He supports us as much as we support him, and it's actually for sale. So it's $37,900. So one of you can pony up and get it, or we could collaborate and buy it for the church. It would be a great donation. So the reason we're here tonight is Cheryl and I have partnered with an organization called Lifelong for Orphans. And how this works is they offer matching grants to families who want to adopt children to ease the expense. I mean, adopting in Washington's can be $25,000 to $30,000. And so they'll give a grant of they're in $3,000 increments, so it could be 3, 6, 9. And the couple that wants to adopt has to raise money to match that, because we just don't give money to people and say, go get a baby. There has to be some skin in the game. They want their community to come around them, which you're their community, plus the people watching online. And the hope is to match whatever's been granted, just to ease the financial burden. So we thank you for doing that tonight. And the people online who have already donated and are going to donate tonight, we're just so grateful. I have to check my notes. Oh, so this will be our 9th future baby that we get to help. We've been with 8 families before. Ben and Kelly were our 7th, and they're actually going to be our 9th. So we've been a part of 9 adoptions. It has nothing to do with my wife and I. It just happens to do with Jesus and what he's done. Oh, by the way, this is a free concert. However, it's a fundraiser, and you're going to get to hear the gospel tonight, whether you like it or not. So if you don't know Jesus, hopefully you'll be introduced to him tonight, and I won't apologize for that. What I hope that you will go home with tonight is Cheryl has a unique story of her upbringing that it's not really mine to share, but I want to kind of give you an outline. Being adopted as a very young girl, her parents, who were grandparents' age, introduced her to 2 things. Introduced her to Jesus and introduced her to the piano. And 50 years later, she's going to tell you how Jesus and this piano has helped 8, now 9 families adopt babies. So we'll talk about some other things at the end, but I'd like to welcome my wife, if you'd like to come up. Cheryl Green. Hi. I'll see you now. Oh, yes, I'll grab 2 minutes.
think I'm on now. I just also want to say thank you for coming. That first song was called Green Roots. It's the track album, the track title of the album Green Roots. It's my second album. The first album I did, as you'll see the albums out in the lobby. The first one was called Raven Girl, and it's really about my life journey. It's an album of hope. And then this one, I was trying to brainstorm and come up with something like, how do I want to do the second album? What kind of music do I want to put on it? And I kept thinking back to, where did my music really come from? What influences me? And I have to say, I grew up with a wide variety. If I told you all the artists, you would be like, whoa, that is so diverse. Everything from hard rock out of the 70s to blues, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin. I think I have every recording Aretha ever did. Whitney Houston, and on, and it keeps going. But where it really started for me was with this couple. And as you heard Bruce say, this is Betty and Denver Green behind me. And yes, that's me as a little girl. I was maybe first, second grade. And I know I am not truly a blonde. The secret is out. I really am a brunette, but they say blondes have more fun, and I'm going to spend probably the rest of my life trying to find that out. So this couple were in their 60s when they took me in as a foster child. First day of first grade, I remember going to school, and then when I came back to where I had to walk myself home, and as a first grader, I look at that situation now, I would never allow my first grader to walk almost a mile by herself home from school. But that was my deal. I had to go and do that. And so I got home, and there was this car there I didn't recognize. And as I walked in, I learned that I now had a caseworker. And this caseworker happened to be the part-time pastor at the little community church that Betty and Denver went to. And so the very first weekend, I show up, and I was put in foster care for a reason. I had all of the abuses that you can imagine had been done to me. I'd seen things and experienced things that no little 6-year-old should ever have to experience. But that first weekend, they had bought me new clothes because I came with only the clothes that I was wearing. And that was all that I really owned at the time. And so they had bought me a new outfit, and I was like, oh, this is exciting. I'll have something to wear different to school, the next day. And so anyway, they're getting up on a Sunday morning, and they're getting ready. Looks like they're going somewhere, but I have no clue where we're going or they're going. And so I asked, where are we going? Or where are you going? And they said, well, we're going to go to church. And I didn't know, and as naive as I was, I said, well, what's church? And so Betty's like, oh, this is where we're going to go. And we learn more and more about who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And we sing songs to Jesus. Now, granted, I grew up with a mother who chose drugs and alcohol over taking care of her own child. And so I didn't know any better, but I just looked at her and I said, what the hell is a Jesus? Fortunately, my Betty did not, shame me. She didn't scold me for, talking in a certain way. But she just continued to love on me and show me what true love really is. And so we went to church, and that first Sunday I'm sitting there, and they start singing, and automatically my view went right to the piano. Now, they didn't have a beautiful piano like this one. They had an old antique upright. Some of the ivories on the keys, they were missing, and it was just bare wood. But the sound that came out of that was immensely beautiful. And I kept watching and watching, and I was only supposed to be in foster care for a weekend, but my birth mother skipped town because, hey, somebody else is taking care of this kid, so I can go do what I want. And we never heard from her for over a year. So I didn't know that as a little kid, but later, I find out these things. And so anyway, it wasn't too many weeks I figured out this was a small church, a lot of elderly people. And now that I'm one of those elderly people, I have to be careful about saying old. Because I'm about the same age as that Betty and Denver were when I first came to them. But they would stand out in the lobby, and they would start chit-chatting and not in a hurry to go anywhere. So nobody really noticed. I would sneak back in, and I would go up to the piano, and I'd start playing. And so I just have always, it was just something very spiritual, natural, that I was drawn towards that piano. And so after about a year, I ended up being placed back with my birth mother. And then I don't even think it was a full year that I was back with her. She still did the same things. I was abandoned several days at a time where there was no food in the house, and I was to take care of 2 younger kids who were younger than me, and I was only in 2nd grade. So I kind of grew up real fast, and like I said, I was a little mean. My husband still thinks I'm mean. But I really was ornery, and so there was a lot of love that was poured into me to kind of chip away those edges that I had. So the next 2 songs that I'm going to play back to back. The first one is called "The Light," and all of the music on this album, every one of the pieces are inspired by an old hymn, because the little Bible church that I went to, that's what they sang. Now, do I listen to hymns now? I can't even tell you the last time I listened to a hymn. They're not my favorite. There's so much beautiful music out there, and definitely some beautiful praise and worship music as well. But hymns were never something that, as an adult, I go, oh, I can hardly wait to get to sing that song or that hymn. But every song on here, and I've changed names, and I've let the hymn actually influence me in writing. So in some of them, you actually may hear the old hymn, and you may recognize it. Some of them don't sound anything like what the original hymn is. And so the first one, "The Light," it's actually 2 hymns. It starts out being influenced by "At the Cross" and then "Rock of Ages." And this song is in here and entitled "The Light," because the Greens really were the people who showed me what that true light was. And then the second song that I'll play immediately right after is called "Inner Eye." And in our society, there's a lot of people who meditate, and it's all about themselves, and focus on your inner eye. And I'm like, that would be Jesus, right? So for me, I do meditate, but I read God's word, and I also focus on having an attitude of gratitude of what he's done for me. And so that hymn is "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus." So in and out of foster care, by the time I was 4th grade, I was back in foster care. And I'd been in a few homes, but then I got placed back with the Greens. And that year, I know it seems so long ago now, but I was 10 years old, and I knew I was very mature for a 10-year-old because of life experiences. And I knew without a doubt, nobody's coming back to get me. I don't have a family. And I'm really trying not to be emotional, right? But it's hard. I felt like it was time for me to make a big decision. And that decision was I was going to follow the Lord no matter what for the rest of my days. And the conversation went something kind of like this. God, I'm kind of like out here, and I'm willing to give you my life, but you better never leave me, or else I'll never come back. I mean, like I said, I was kind of mean, and I even talked to God like that as a kid. And but at 10 years old, I gave my life to the Lord to say, do with me whatever you want. You're my true Father, and you're going to be the one that guides me and leads me in everything I do. And so these next 2 songs I'm going to play back to back as well. The first one is called Rescued. And the hymn that it was inspired by is Redeem, How I Love to Proclaim It. I feel like my relationship with the Lord is what saved my life. It got me out of the vicious cycle of drugs and alcohol and everything that goes with those 2 things. And the second piece is called True Love, and it's a children's hymn called Jesus Loves Me. And it was me and Jesus for a lot of years. And so at 16, that was another big year for me. The Greens finally were allowed to adopt me, because in the state of Washington, they said no for years because my foster parents were the age of grandparents, right? So they said, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. But after a long time, they revoked the rights of the birth mother and said, the Greens want to adopt you, but it's your decision. And so at 16, I already had goals and plans and dreams of what I wanted to do, go to college, and my adopted parents taught me good work ethics and to work hard and to rely on the Lord. But they did not support me through college. They said, if you want to go to school, you're going to have to figure out a way to do that on your own. And fortunately, I kept going with the piano, and I went and played a couple of songs, and they went, let's write her a scholarship. And so most of my education was on scholarship and grants, and so I'm very thankful for that. But once again, the Greens adopted me at 16, and through them, the Lord used them to teach me about what that true love really is. So the next song I'm going to play is, I'm going to play it just by itself. 4 years ago, I did a DNA test. I had a friend who tried to convince me to do this because I never knew who my father was. It was just anything that was mentioned about my father was just a black hole. I didn't know anything. I had been lied to. I had been told certain things by my birth mother. None of it was true. She was a chronic liar. I found out, and so it made things really challenging and difficult. But I went ahead and I did a DNA test, and I thought, well, at my age, and chances of my father still being alive are not very high, but at least maybe I might have some siblings, and I could maybe learn about who my father was through siblings. And so I did a DNA test, and I did locate my father, and I had a search angel, which you can ask me about later if you're curious what that is. But she informed me that, yes, this is who your father is. Here's his address. Here's his phone number. Here's his email. He's married. This is her name. And you have 5 siblings. I'm like, oh, wow. And so I didn't even know where to start. And so anyway, over the last 4 years, we have slowly gotten to know each other and built a really healthy relationship. And I'm eternally grateful that I've been able to do that. But one of the best parts about it was my stepmom. She loved me and accepted me for who I was. And she didn't have to. Whenever you do something like that, like the DNA, a lot of times people don't want, their secrets to be revealed. Long story, but my dad didn't even know I existed. And so I had sent a letter with my picture and all my information in it. And my dad took him a couple weeks before he could respond because he just couldn't quite figure out how this happened. And he knew I was his because the picture I sent, I looked just like my sister. And so my sister actually was the first one to reach out to me, and we talked and got to know each other a little bit on the phone and got to know them, and then I got to meet them, and I get to visit them pretty regular, a couple times a year, and we call each other and we talk, and it's wonderful. But my stepmom just loves me like I'm one of her own, and that is such a huge blessing. And so when I was creating this album, I was asking different people, like, what's your favorite hymn? And she loves Jesus, and she said, I love the hymn, I Have Called You by Name. And I also love Ave Maria. And I'm like, okay, I'll see if I can put both of those together. So I'm very blessed, not only because I was adopted by the Greens, but I feel like my stepmom is my mom now, and I feel like I've had a second adoption, and it's pretty cool. So this song is dedicated to Susan Jensen, my stepmom, and the picture that you're going to see, I think I'll have Ben go ahead and put it up here. It's the cover of one of the sheet music when I do just the solo sheet music, so other people can play this. I chose the San Francisco Bridge, and I gave it to her as a gift. And little did I know that she grew up right there on that picture, and that beach where the picture is taken from, she used to go down and play on that beach all the time. She would look out her bedroom window and she could see the San Francisco Bridge. And so this one is dedicated to her.
So the next song that I'm going to play, if some of you know me, some of you don't. I am a huge backpacker. I hope to be backpacking even when I'm well into my 80s and 90s. I was inspired a couple years ago when I backpacked probably 30 miles through the Sawtooth Mountains over in Idaho, and I came across an elderly, we're going to use that word again, elderly, seasoned man. And he admitted he was in his 80s. It was him, his backpack, and his dog. And by the time he said he would get back to his truck, he will have done over 100 miles. He was my hero that day. I was like, wow, I want to be just like that when I get older. So I'm working on it. I've got big plans to do the Grand Tetons this summer and then the Wallowas as well. So this next song is called Enchanted. It's inspired by How Great Thou Art. And so a couple years ago, I got an opportunity to go into the Enchantments, which is here in Washington, and to go there and camp in night. It's like, it's kind of like the lottery. You buy a ticket, and then if your ticket is selected, then you pick a date, and then you have to pay money for each night you're in there and for each person that you take in your group with you. And between myself and my friends, we always seem to get a ticket, and so I'm ever grateful for that. And so my friends had asked to go, and I had another gal who was going to go with me, but she ended up at the last minute not being able to go. Well, I have been known to do this a few times before, so I quickly went on all the Facebook group pages that I'm a part of for women backpacking, and I put my scenario out there that, hey, I'm going to be at this trailhead on this date, and I'm in there for, I don't know how many days, 4 or 5 days, and would anybody like to join me? Anybody want a new friend? Are you my mother? That kind of thing. You know, can you be my friend? And so there was a lady in her 30s named Mandy, and she lives in Oregon. She said, I'll coming right off of a backpacking trip, but I'll reload my backpack and I'll meet you at the trailhead. I said, perfect. So I drove to the trailhead and spent the night in my car, and apparently she did the same thing. And in the morning, I'm just kind of looking all over the parking lot for somebody that looks like they need a friend. And so we ended up spending the whole time together backpacking. Now, we went up, the next slide that you're going to see, this is called Asgard Pass. And
you in the picture, you can't really see it, but there is a beautiful turquoise lake just a little below, like maybe an inch below where the screen is. And it's just beautiful. And so we had climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed all day to get there. Now, my pack isn't just a little day pack like you put your school books in. My backpack is almost as big as I am and weighs 30 pounds. And so it's heavy. And so I'm, I take a lot of pictures. Wink, wink. I know my husband always jokes about, I've never known anybody take so many pictures, but it gives me just enough time to catch my breath. And so anyway, we had gotten up to the lake and spent the next few days kind of hiking around different trails, but not going up Asgard Pass. Now, Asgard Pass from the bottom to the top is less than a mile, almost a mile, but it gains over 2,000 feet of elevation gain within just that short amount of time. There's no trail. It's all like screed rock. And so all it takes is one wrong step and you will go down, down, down. And you might not stop. So my new friend, Mandy, said, I think on our last day, we should climb that and go out the other way. And she had mentioned this when we first started. So we left one car at the end of the trailhead and one where we started, just in case. And I was like, I don't know. For 4 days, I'm like agonizing over, can I even do this? This is huge. It's 30 pounds on my back and and I didn't think I was going to do it. And then I finally said, Cheryl, you're not getting any younger. And I know that's like an old people thing that they say, you're not getting any younger, sweetie pie. And so sure enough, I was not. And I thought, I don't know if next year, you never know what next year is going to bring. So I'm here. I'm going to at least try. So Mandy had it all figured out. She'd done this several times. We started at 4 o'clock in the morning, a.m. And with our backpacks, we had headlamps on, looking kind of silly and crazy, but we started in the dark. Our goal was to get to the top by noon because once the sun came over and hit that rock, it was going to melt us and we wouldn't be able to finish climbing. We'd just have to wait until the sun went down, and that's not a good thing either. So we started climbing, and when I got to the top, you go over it and it opens up into this whole region of beauty that I can't even describe it to you, but it's magical. It's not very many people get to see it, and that's why they call this the Enchantments, because it really is just gorgeous. And I got to the top, and it was just Mandy and I, nobody else was there. And all of a sudden, out of my soul, I couldn't hide it. I couldn't keep it in. I just started singing, how great thou art. And I'm not going to sing for you because I'm not what I would call a singer. But I started shouting, and I can't even tell you the last time I sang that song, probably when I was in 4th or 5th grade, maybe 16. But it was a long time, and I knew every word, and it just belted out of me. And my new friend, Mandy, just kind of looked at me a little odd, but I said, and I told her about my music and what I do. And I said, this hymn, How Great Thou Art, is going to be on my next album. And I hope you love it as much as I do. I love this piece particularly, and it's called Enchanted. So the last, or not last, we still have a few more here. The next two are going to be played together. The first one is called Grace, and I know you can probably imagine, even if you've never been to church before and you're here and you've never ever set foot in a church, don't worry, you're still alive. God hasn't struck you down yet, so I think you're going to make it through the concert. Grace is inspired by the famous song Amazing Grace, and when I had finished it, I have a sound engineer who lives on the west side of the state, Tim Osborne. We have been friends forever and ever, it seems like. And when I think I'm all done, I'll send it just to get a second set of ears on the piece and have him, give me any honest feedback. And he's pretty honest. And he sent word right as soon as he heard it. He said, Cheryl, I'm going to let you know your version of this sounds very much like the 1980s version of Amazing Grace. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I guess somebody has done a version of Amazing Grace in the 80s, and I guess it sounded almost the same, which is really kind of weird because I don't even remember ever hearing that. And so he's like, yeah, you take a real good chance of getting sued. And I was like, oh, I definitely don't want that. So, because all my royalties, all my music is kind of like my hobby. But I don't get any of the money. I give it all to families who want to be adopted. So it's like, please don't sue me. This would not be good. So he's like, yeah, I think we need to scratch it. And I'm like, no, it needs to be in here. So I worked it, rewrote it. It does not sound anything like Amazing Grace at all. So the first one is called Grace. And the second one is called Forever Faithful. And it's based off of the hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness. And these two go together because I am not perfect, and I know this as much as I strive to be. I know I'm not. And so God's grace is sufficient for me. I don't have to be perfect. I don't even have to play this concert perfect. And you may hear a mistake if you haven't already. So, and that's okay, because like I said, God's grace is sufficient for me. And then Forever Faithful, from a small child to the age that I am now, I actually have gone through a lot of stuff, as well as probably many of you. A lot of it not good. I have had a lot of good moments in life, and I choose to dwell on the positive, whatever's true, whatever's right, whatever's lovely, whatever's pure, whatever's noble, whatever's excellent and admirable and praiseworthy. Those are the things that I try to choose to reflect on. But even through the hard times, I am standing here before you to say that God is faithful, and He has watched over me. And that little conversation I had with God as a little girl, I know my life's not over yet, and I'm still going to hold Him to that promise till I die. But He's never let me down. And everything that I thought was like, oh, how could this be? It's a bad thing. He has turned it in for good. Who would have thought that a foster child who had been so abused and ended up being so mean could turn around and write music and just give it all away? So here is Grace and Forever Faithful. So the last two, I'm going to play back to back as well, and this will conclude our program for this evening. The first one is called Lead Me Home, and it is inspired by the hymn, The Way of the Cross Leads Home. And whenever I think about, and I don't, spend my whole life reflecting, but I think it's good to stop every once in a while and reflect where you've come from. And I grew up in the Columbia Gorge area, just east of Portland, and it was beautiful country there. And so I feel sorry for everybody else who can't live in the Pacific Northwest. I just love it here, and I'll probably never leave it. So going home, I see that Columbia Gorge is my home, but I also know that home is in that little place of Betty and Denver's that they took me in, and the place of their little small community church that we attended on a regular basis. And that's home for me. And so this is Lead Me Home is the first one. And the second one is called Breathe. And it's inspired by the hymn, Holy Spirit, Breathe on Me. And so I added this one in here because I realized that I've been given a talent. I love to write music. Someday I'm going to retire from teaching, even though I love teaching, but I just want to write more music. And now that I know and I see the big picture of what God's plan is for my life and what it has been and where it's going, I just want to continue to write more and more to be able to help more families. And hopefully one of these days I'll be doing another concert and I can say, we have helped 500 and who knows how many student or babies find families. So here's the last two, and thanks for coming.
Hello. So speaking of grace and amazing grace, I kind of made a boo-boo and left out the introduction of Ben and Kelly and Melody. So would you come up here, please? I was looking at my bride and I thought I might have been talking too long, so I panicked. Come on up. So this is Ben and Kelly Doehle and little Melody, and they're why we're here tonight. But a little backstory on Melody. 2 years ago, Mother's Day, we did this same concert. And we had $9,000 in matching grants between my wife and I and Lifesong. And we were hoping to match that so they'd only have to come up with 12. I think we got it all. Maybe with $6 to spare. We raised almost $30,000 in one night. And this little girl was the recipient of it. And out of the 9 or 8 people that we've helped before, we've only got to meet one of the children. But this isn't about Ben and Kelly. It's not about my wife. It is about the piano. But her life has changed because of people like you and Christ. So I hope that a month from now you'll get that phone call that will get us another one. And then I just want to take care of some financial info for you, which is boring, but it's fun for me. All of the production of Cheryl's music, everything was paid for by my wife and I. And we don't accept any money. Everything's donated. So any money donated goes directly into a Lifesong account, except for cash or whatever, then we'll directly do it. We're not really interested in paying taxes on donations, so if it goes directly into Lifesong, we don't have to touch it, and we don't want to be under anybody's microscope of, hey, how are you dealing with finances? It just goes in there, and then we tell Lifesong where to disperse it, or they'll ask us where to disperse it. So all the donations 100% go to where we direct it, and tonight it's to you guys, and our. Just a little fun fact, before tonight even started, I think we had already got $12,000 in donations, not including the $3,000 that my wife put in. So if that $3,000 just gets matched, that puts us about $18,000. And if we didn't get any more, which I think we will because our online people are amazing, they're over halfway home to fully funding their second child. And I can imagine that's a stress relief for you guys. It doesn't hurt if you have to come out of pocket a little bit, have a little skin in the game, but I think it'll be wonderful. Since I have my reading glasses, I want to make sure I don't forget anything else. Actually, I'm going to leave it alone. What I'd like to do, I want to pray over them real quick, because this ended up turning into a church service. And if anybody in this room does not know Jesus and want to know who the hell this Jesus is, you can come talk to us afterwards, and I'd love to share them with you. But let me pray. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the opportunity to spend this evening for Ben and Kelly and little Melody. And we know that you already have a child picked out for them, boy, girl. We're just grateful to be a part of it, be a conduit, and we know that this night is all about you and the son that you sent who died for us, and we're just so grateful to be a part of it. We can't wait for what the future holds. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much for coming. It's truly an honor to do this for you. Wanda's got a hand up. Oh, yes, thank you. That was my other part. There is a QR code. Do we have that? There's a QR code on the table in the back that you can do it. However, I don't know, is that online? This is a real professional environment here. There you go. So people online, if you're in Wisconsin, it should be 11:30 by now. Dean and Tracy, I need you to donate. So anyways, Valley Bible Church website, and you can also go on Cheryl Green's Academy of Piano website. It's also there. That may end up going to Cheryl, but try theirs first. And if they happen to go over by 10,000, then hopefully they'll just put it back in Cheryl's account, and we'll go get you another one later, because they're not allowed to keep it. People, thank you very much. Thank you for spending a weekend with us, and sorry we kept you so long. And there is cookies, coffee, water, tangerines, oranges. Thank you for coming.